when LeBron James and his son Bronny are on the floor at the same time. It's first in NBA history. How do you view the situation?
Bronny's a prospect. Number one, I'm glad he's healthy. I think he should be in the G League. He's not ready to play in the NBA right now.
And it's expected he will spend.
And he should be in the G League. He's a point guard, two guard. His probably best attribute right now is being a defender. But I think to take the pressure off him and let him get better as a player, he should be in the G League.
He's not ready for the NBA. Those 5 words from Charles Barkley about Bronny James sparked a fire in LeBron that we haven't seen before. The TNT crew went silent when Chuck started breaking down why Bronny should be in the G League. But here's what makes this whole situation crazy. Barkley might not be wrong about the numbers, but LeBron sees something totally different in his son. When you hear both sides of this story, you'll understand why this turned into the biggest debate in basketball. These numbers reveal a story no one anticipated, so let's examine what Bronny is actually doing on the court. Bronny was only able to sink 1 shot out of 11 attempts in his first 3 preseason games. For any player, those numbers are difficult, but for LeBron's son, they take on a different meaning. You can see that he is a talented player who is having trouble finding his rhythm if you watch his game footage. Even open looks are failing to drop, drives to the basket are disrupted, and contested threes clank off the rim. What's intriguing, though, is that Bronny continues to make plays on defense.
With the 55th overall pick in the 2nd round, LeBron and his son now officially have the opportunity to be the first father-son duo to play in the NBA at the same time. Bronny James, thank God, he's in this position. If y'all remember, he had suffered cardiac arrest last year while on the campus of USC. We didn't know what his status was. I don't give a damn about him averaging less than 5 points. I don't care about his numbers or anything like that. You heard about his athleticism. You heard about his defensive prowess. You heard about the potential that he may have.
Get his hands in passing lanes, and display flashes of James's basketball IQ even when his offense is struggling. However, since USC is where things get complicated, we must discuss it. Bronny didn't have the same runway as most NBA prospects during his time in college. He was only getting a few minutes, and he was juggling something far more significant than basketball at the exact moment he needed to be improving. That preseason cardiac arrest? Everything changed as a result. Bronny was focused on simply getting back on the court, and to be honest, it's amazing that he's playing at all, while other players were working out in the summer to prepare for the season. Take a moment to consider his college stats. 8.8 points in 4 games at USC. Contrast that with someone who has been dominating pre-draft workouts, such as Dalton Knecht. Their performances reflect the stark differences in playing time and development.
I think we've only, in modern time, I remember when Ken Griffey Jr. and his dad was on the field together with the Mariners, and to see this, I never thought it was even possible. I believe the first game of the season they're going to play, I will be at that game. Now, run tell that. October 22nd, Shea going to be in the house. For the first time in NBA history, oh man, it's nepotism. Half the corporations is nepotism.
Scouts weren't seeing the final product they were hoping for when they first started observing Bronny. Those James genes don't lie, so they saw potential. However, they also observed a player who requires more time to mature, more practice to gain confidence, and more chances to demonstrate his abilities against elite opponents. And that's precisely the source of Barkley's remarks. Chuck was observing these same numbers, watching these same games, and seeing what everyone else was seeing, so he wasn't just making fun of them. Trying to live up to the biggest name in basketball while still learning the game, this young player has all the pressure in the world. However, the following is what is about to blow up. These remarks aren't coming from just any analyst, Charles Barkley. He and LeBron have a history together. So why does he bring up Bronny's need for G League time? Things really start to heat up at that point. Have you ever heard someone express what everyone is thinking, but no one wants to say aloud? When Charles Barkley took over the microphone on TNT, that's precisely what happened. Chuck went right to the point with some brutal honesty that started a chain reaction, while everyone else skirted the issue of Bronny's NBA readiness. When Barkley began dissecting Bronny's game, the entire TNT crew fell silent. Without sugarcoating it, he stated, "He's not ready to be a rotation player in the NBA." Chuck criticized Bronny's offensive style and stated that he needs to improve significantly before he can play at a higher level. Barkley presented it in a way that focused on the core abilities required to thrive in the league rather than just the numbers. In an attempt to set the scene, Kenny Smith jumped in and mentioned how Bronny's development was halted at USC. Kenny clarified that Bronny hasn't had the typical trajectory that most NBA prospects experience due to missed games and coaching difficulties. The message was clear: Bronny needs more time. Despite Kenny's attempts to soften the blow, Chuck has previously been harsh on young players joining the league. Do you recall his criticism of young celebrities who had just graduated from high school? However, there is a distinction in this case. Chuck is aware that he is treading carefully in this situation, as evidenced by the expression on his face. He has always respected LeBron and has even referred to him as one of the greatest of all time. Despite this, he continued to be candid about Bronny. As they tried to add some positive spin, the TNT crew began to feel anxious. Chuck wasn't finished, though. He explained that having the James name makes Bronny a target because every defender will attack him more forcefully and every error will be emphasized. Chuck views Bronny's transfer to the G League as a form of protection and an opportunity to grow away from the public eye. In the studio, you could sense the tension rising. Ernie Johnson attempted to change the topic to something more secure, but the damage was already done. Now that Chuck had said what he felt had to be said, everyone was anticipating LeBron's inevitable reaction. Because if we know anything about the King, it's that he will not remain silent when someone discusses his family, particularly Bronny. Knowing that this was no longer just about basketball, the entire basketball community began to hold its breath. One of the most vocal voices in NBA history, along with his son, dropped truth bombs that no one else dared to say aloud. Chuck dropped those truth bombs? During what ought to have been a standard post-game interview, they landed directly in LeBron's lap. You haven't witnessed anything like what transpired when someone brought up Barkley's remarks regarding his son if you believe you have seen LeBron get fired up before. You could see LeBron's entire attitude shift the instant a reporter brought up Chuck's perspective. LeBron wasn't having it with this. It wasn't just another critic making fun of his son. Speaking directly into the cameras, he said, "As long as you still have life, then you always have belief." It was a message that was equal parts father and defender. You could tell by the way he spoke that this was about more than just basketball. And when it comes to Bronny, we've already witnessed this protective side of LeBron. LeBron is there to silence anyone who questions his son's potential or path. However, it felt different this time. In addition to the typical assurance, there was a raw emotion that only surfaces when someone is discussing your child. It's amazing how fast the Lakers came together in support of the James family. LeBron's teammates began to voice their support for Bronny and stressed that progress takes time. They have personally witnessed how Bronny's performance on the court is impacted by the pressure of being LeBron's son. Most young players never have to deal with the scrutiny that is applied to every shot, play, and move. On this one, not even Magic Johnson could remain silent. On Twitter, the Lakers legend jumped to Bronny's defense, pointing out that the Lakers organization is an expert at nurturing young talent. Magic introduced players like Austin Reeves and Alex Caruso, who took their time to mature but are now having a significant impact on the league. Beyond Barkley's remarks and LeBron's response, the entire matter has escalated into something more significant. Everyone is now discussing nepotism in the NBA and whether Bronny's chances are aided or hindered by being LeBron's son. Watch LeBron in these interviews, though, as he fights for Bronny's right to forge his own path, make his own mistakes, and develop at his own speed, not just to protect his son. It has become a perfect storm where family and basketball collide, and personal safety collides with professional criticism. In the midst of all of this, a father is doing what fathers do, which is to defend his child regardless of the parties involved. However, as the drama intensified, people began to examine Chuck's actual suggestion, and that's when things start to get interesting. A basic fact about the G League that is lost in all of this back and forth between legends is that it has transformed ordinary players into NBA stars right in front of our eyes. Bronny might benefit greatly from the South Bay Lakers, who have created some of the most unexpected success stories in recent NBA history. Take a look at Austin Reeves. Just a few years ago, no one was discussing him. Even though he has a $56 million contract, he continues to score 20 points in games as if it were insignificant. Without the pressure of NBA fans observing every move, the G League allowed him the space to make mistakes, grow from them, and improve. That type of setting has the power to change a player. This is a system that the South Bay Lakers have perfected. Promising players are given minutes, which is something the NBA does not offer them. They can practice their weaknesses and gain confidence with genuine, purposeful playing time. Another excellent example is Alex Caruso. From a G League grinder to an NBA champion, he is now a vital member of the Bulls roster. That is not a coincidence. Furthermore, Bronny is not the first NBA son to follow this course. The G League has allowed guys with well-known fathers to emerge from their father's shadows and forge their own identities. The great thing about it is that there is less pressure, because it is just basketball development and there are no national TV games or Twitter outbursts following every missed shot. Scouts are also noticing it. They are witnessing men transform into entirely new players as they progress through the G League system. You can experiment with your game, identify your strengths, and work on your weaknesses without feeling the pressure of NBA expectations. It's similar to a basketball lab. Consider the implications for Bronny. He could be playing 30 minutes a night in the G League, leading the offense, making mistakes, and growing from them instead of trying to live up to the James name in front of crowded NBA arenas. You develop a complete player in this way. The G League is not a consolation prize. Rather, it is turning into a secret weapon for astute teams that understand how to nurture talent. Players have more opportunities to prove themselves, more game reps, and more practice time. After every game, they don't have to worry about trending on social media. They can concentrate on improving. Perhaps that was Barkley's true intention before everything went awry. He may have unintentionally highlighted the ideal route for Bronny to become his own player, grow at his own speed, and eventually establish himself in the NBA, despite all the drama and acrimonious reactions. Because that is ultimately what this is all about, isn't it? In the end, this whole thing is about more than just Bronny and Chuck exchanging insults in the press. It's about the conflict between unrealistic expectations and the realities of normal development that every child with a famous parent must deal with. Players like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry have experienced this in the past, having to cope with pressure from NBA families of their own. In actuality, there isn't a foolproof plan for getting into the NBA, particularly when your last name is so significant. Finding the correct path is what counts, even though some players require more time than others. The true triumph lies in taking the time to develop into the best player you can be, regardless of whether you choose to compete in the G League or go straight to the pros.